There are always going to be people moving around, people moving to different parts of a city, moving outside of their state or province, moving to entirely different countries. It happens. But when the trend persists, it's essential to watch the flow and begin to ask why. Why is this happening? Is there anything that we can pinpoint from this, and what does it tell us? Let's look into that now. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we're going to look at where people are moving in and out of in the United States. This is a topic that I do cover on a consistent basis. I'm showing you what's happening. I'm giving you the updated numbers, and then we look at the reasons why. There are many factors, of course. People move to new areas because they get a job there. Maybe they can't find work in their particular field, so they go elsewhere. Maybe it's family issues. Maybe it's money issues. There could be all different types of reasons, and I'll cover some of those today. So I wanted to begin by taking a look at this right here out of Fox. These are the top retiree destinations in 2018. Obviously, when people are on a fixed income, they are looking to find a place that is more affordable. Also, perhaps they're looking to go to a place that has better weather. So a lot of individuals, for example, they leave New York and they go to Florida. There are other instances of this as well, but essentially you have to watch what's going on all different levels. It's not just one factor, but certainly we have to focus on some, particularly when there is a persistent trend. New Mexico, 43%. This was the first year New Mexico topped the list. 43% of moves to New Mexico were related to retirement, while 60% of people were moving there between the ages of 55 and 74. Cost of living in the state is 3% less than the national average. Income taxes are low, so that's one of the places. Now, you would have thought perhaps Florida would be on top. This one comes in at 39%. One of the factors that they mention in here is that this is not subject to state income taxes being very beneficial for those there. Obviously, Arizona, you can see right here, 37%. Below that, you can see the list of those who make up the top 10 if you're interested. There is another article here, counties where the American dream may already be dead. If you look through here, it just shows you these different counties in the United States, and you see areas, I was just skimming through it, Louisiana, Georgia, Mississippi, and some others, but it just gives you an idea of where the areas are that have high poverty rates, higher unemployment rates than the national average, the income is not enough, and so on. So if you want to see those places, you can definitely check that out, but you have to understand this happens from city to city. You can see that different counties are affected by it more than others. There could be various factors. Maybe, let's say it's an industry that's no longer booming, jobs are moving out. That means people are moving out as well. When you have different situations like this, you tend to see the population really change, but it doesn't happen overnight. It could take decades, it could even take generations, but things definitely change. Some of the most big cities, some of the most popular cities in the United States have changed over the years. It's not always one particular city at the top of the list. It takes, as I said, generations in some instances. Is New York City's remarkable growth story ending? Well, in this article here, they basically write an entire piece out of the New York Times suggesting that this is because the population, by the way, had come down a small amount. I believe it's 40,000 people. And the reason why is the way that they calculate. That's right. It has nothing to do with the fact that it's so expensive people can't afford it because of all the different issues that have been happening in New York over the years. No. It's because they changed the way that they calculate. The methodology has changed, and therefore you don't have to worry. New York is a remarkable growth story, but there's no denying that it isn't. I mean, just look at it. If you see the skyscrapers, you see the wealth that's there, the amount of building that has happened, there are are many people that live here. There are lots of jobs here. But if you want to focus on only those points, you are ignoring the rest. So this is a situation that we have seen ultimately where this really changes when you look at some other data. Let me just get into it. Out of the New York Post, New York City is, for the first time in more than 10 years, shrinking. Tens of thousands of people are scooting off to greener pastures, sometimes literally to green pastures for people who have the ability to work remotely and enjoy a quieter and slower pace of life than New York City. According to the estimates, they saw a net loss of 37,000 residents in 2017, 39,000 in 2018. In the next paragraph, they're basically talking about the fact that things have changed. If you wanted to get into certain industries, finance, publishing, media, fashion, you had to be there in New York. That was the place to be. Things have really changed, particularly with remote working, other cities that have become more popular. It's not the way it used to be. In the bottom paragraph, they're talking about the costs that are associated with it. Of course, financially, as well as other factors. This individual is talking about how they live in Texas now. It's a big difference, not having to stuff themselves down in the underground subway. They're able to have different quality of life, which they believe is better. It's up to you, really, I believe. In my opinion, people like certain things. They're used to certain things. And I really don't see a right or wrong on this. But anyway, let's move on to some more details I wanted to get into. But when you look at this is one very important factor, and that is something that people can't deny: the cost of living. I typed in New York, assessed home value $1 million. Now, why $1 million? That's the average home. That's the median home. I believe the last time I saw it dipped just under 1 million, but that's a good average. Of course, you can find homes for cheaper. You can find homes that are more expensive. But we're just looking at this as an example, okay? It's a rounded number. This happens to be at a very, very expensive $19,000 for the annual property taxes for those people. That is incredible. On top of all of your other bills, you have to pay $19,000 just to rent the land of your home. Now, chances are many of these people, if they're living in an area like Manhattan, they're living in a high-rise, they don't even have a land to rent. They're paying basically for no reason whatsoever. This is the way I look at it. It's incredibly expensive. New York County, $19,000. New York, $15,780. National happens to be $12,000. Now, these numbers here, of course, depending on where you look, it's extremely varied. Some areas you're going to pay a small amount. Other places you're going to pay excessive amounts. Depends on the size of your home. Depends on where you live. Depends on the price. There are many factors, okay? But when I look at this, I find that this is one major factor for people, not just the fact that they are paying property taxes that are expensive, but just taxes in general and their living expenses, the food that they pay. And one of the other things is energy. And you can see here, this is an amazing website. I've brought it up before. I don't know how to pronounce it, but Numbeo or Numbeo, NUMBEO.com. Okay, the link will be in the description as always. And you can see the cost of living in different cities, which is measured by different people. So you go through and they will actually break down what they personally pay. That's going to vary, obviously. And then you get a range, and that gives you an idea, and it gives you some numbers here that I thought were really good. I've used this site from time to time, and I do reference it to get an idea of how different cities compare to each other when I'm trying to do research for a topic like this. Here you can see utilities monthly at the very top, basic, electricity, heating, cooling, water, garbage for a 915 square foot apartment. Okay, we're not talking about something big, but I assume that's probably a 2-bedroom unit perhaps, and that is averaging $148 per month. That is a very big range, $80 to $244. So it depends on where you are in that, but at least it gives us something of an idea. $150 just for electricity, heating, cooling, water, garbage. That's not food, that's not property taxes. Who knows what else that people have to pay. In the third section here, you can see childcare. It is $2,300 a month. That's another range. You can see all the different expenses that people have to pay. An apartment in the city center, over $3,000. It gets very expensive, of course. The larger the size, the better the area, and so on. But think about how expensive this really is to live in a place like New York, and then you have people leaving. Why doesn't that surprise anybody? Generally, the way I see it for places like California and New York are that individuals who already live in the US, they are leaving for other states that are cheaper in general. Maybe they are now on a fixed income, they're retiring, or maybe they're just a problem, they can't afford it, they're leaving for different reasons, right? But what I see here is that external migration comes in and actually keeps those population levels stable, or at least doesn't fall so fast. That's usually what occurs. I've noticed this with California as well as New York in particular, but of course let the data speak for itself. One place that I have noticed this to be dramatic is Baltimore specifically. Baltimore sees biggest population loss in a single year since 2001, census estimates show. So this is one area that is really not doing well. I mean, if anybody lives there, I'd really like to know what's going on. You know, the information that we get in the media is obviously going to be skewed one way or another, but if you live there or if you used to live there, any information that you can share, please let us all know in the comments section. It's very important that we're getting the real deal right from the people who are on the ground. Now, this happens to be Baltimore City population, just showing you over the years, they have been getting less and less. They're declining. People are leaving. That just tells you that this is not a good situation. You wouldn't want to think or predict that something big is going to happen there, something good is going to happen there. It seems like the trend is moving out. This just gives you some insight. It's only one factor. There could be many things, that are responsible for this. I don't know enough about this city particularly, but when you look at an investment for whatever it might be, you want to know what's happening with the general population. Are there people moving in? Are the people that are moving in, whether they're very wealthy, whether they're more of a lower income? You want a strong middle class to be forming. You want more businesses to be opening up. You want general restoration of all the buildings. If you see these different cranes that are there and buildings that are being fixed up, that's a good sign that people are working. The city's going to continue to improve and not fall apart. There are some areas that have no-go zones in cities. If you have that, that's probably not a good idea. Now, obviously, every major city is going to have some worse areas and more affluent areas, but you don't want to have something that nobody wants to touch. But regardless, the way I see this right here is use it as an indicator, but take it with a grain of salt, because we never really know what's happening on all levels unless we hear it from people on the inside. So I do appreciate if you would share whether you are in Baltimore, whether you're in somewhere in New York or California or anywhere else. I appreciate that a lot. If you want to support me, you can give me a thumbs up on this video. I do appreciate that as well. If you want the financial education you were not taught in school, these two books have everything you need, from the foundation, history, the asset classes, so much more. I got everything in the two books. Check out the link in the description. If you want the audiobook, that's available at themoneygps.com. Right now in 2019, there are over 6,000 stores that are closing. The economy is worsening and the situation is starting to make its way into the businesses. If you haven't watched this video, click on it and I will see you there.